Namaskar and thank you for joining us here on the Economic Brief, the program that tracks key business and economy related stories from India and across the world and puts them in their context amid domestic and geo-economic settings. My name is Mark Lynn. On the show today, we look at the key questions that could determine AI-related regulation after India's Communication Minister says regulation should not be an afterthought. The German economy's slowdown has repercussions in Europe, but also may be a catalyst for quicker energy transition. Spain continues to see protests as locals believe they are being priced out of the housing market. And we leave you with a story remembering a titan of an industrialist whose heart was in the right place. Well, India's Communications Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia earlier this week spoke about the transformative power of 5G, and he was addressing the International Telecom Union Summit in Delhi. He said that 5G is expected to inject around $450 billion into the Indian economy by 2040. And he also said that 5G lays the groundwork for smart cities, advanced infrastructure, and autonomous innovation. That's what's important. Let's listen to what he said.
In India alone, for example, 5G is anticipated to inject an astounding $450 billion into the economy by 2040. And therefore, while we have rolled out 5G across all 36 states and union territories, covering 98% of our districts and 80% of our population in just 22 months. This is not only a feat of India alone, but it highlights the transformative power of standardized innovation.
But that's not all that the minister said. He has also called for AI regulation. The Communications Minister, Jyotiraditya Scindia, whom you heard there, he has called for AI and IoT or Internet of Things regulations. Now, India already has a few frameworks and guidelines to guide responsible AI development. There's the National Strategy for Artificial Intelligence, the Principles of Responsible AI, and the operationalizing of the principles of responsible AI. But you know, the governance cannot be an afterthought. That's what the minister said. There are key issues that are at play here. Privacy, of course, is the biggest issue. Then there's bias. To deal with this, we need governance, we need responsibility and accountability. Bias, you know, what is it? It involves machine learning, developing opinions based on data that targets certain communities or groups, based on false data perhaps, or available data about race, language, color, community, etc. Technologies also must be used to benefit society. So obviously there's plenty of good in this technology. There are no comprehensive legislations across the world as of now. Only the EU has an act. It's the AI Act. And that is more of, you know, it sort of gives the law enforcement agencies a sort of more teeth to use biometric data to identify criminal suspects. But otherwise, it has several restrictions on AI. But that may not be the right model at the moment. You know, AI enables unmatched agility, precision. There's plenty that can be unleashed through AI. AI is already reshaping how information is stored and processed in our world. To try and understand this a little bit more, we have with us in the studio, Subimal Bhattacharjee is a columnist and consultant on tech-related matters, and Prasenjit Basu is an economist with an expertise in the global economy. Thank you very much, both of you, for being with us. Mr. Bhattacharjee, let me start with you. What should we regulate when we're talking about AI? What areas?
I think there are quite a few areas that need to be regulated, and already the global community is talking to each other on that. But I think to start with, we have to look at the AI bias regulation. You just mentioned about it as you were speaking. You have to look at the privacy issues. Then you have to look at the algorithmic transparency, and most importantly, when you use all this technology, how does it impact the society? So, AI remaining as a tool, as an enabler, that's what should always be the intent, and AI going to destructive roles to impact humanity as such, society as such, I think that's what everyone is looking at.
Right.
So, I would think that these are the 3-4 things that we should start with, and we really don't have time that we will wait for some much more of things to come on the table to be talking on that.
Absolutely. Mr. Basu, how best to go about, creating a regulatory environment? What would you say?
Well, there have to be guardrails to ensure that AI isn't misused. There are, of course, enormous dangers to artificial intelligence. The primary danger is that we might lose control of it, and we might have rogue applications that have a huge impact on society and on our world in general. So there will have to be guardrails put in place, and a regulatory framework needs to therefore exist to ensure that, for instance, social disruptions such as biases against particular communities don't get embedded in artificial intelligence. So a proper regulatory framework is absolutely imperative. And just as we have regulation of the insurance market, we have regulation of the stock markets. Similarly, there will need to be a regulatory framework created, and preferably an agency that is impartial, not controlled by government, but manned and womaned by professionals who understand the issues and can put in place the appropriate guardrails.
Mr. Bhattacharjee, we are currently, dealing with AI, which is pretty much in our control, narrow AI. But when it becomes super intelligent AI, where you can imagine that it has the computing capacity of several supercomputers, a brain the size of the Earth or something like that. That's the kind of power we are talking about. And of course, not lifetime, because it's not subject to mortality. So, I mean, the question is, when that kind of computing power is available, who should we be regulating? Because it falls into the hands of both state as well as non-state actors.
I think there are quite a few players who need to be regulated, but we first have to start, with the entities that are using the large language models to, generate content, and those kind of content, they go in various directions. So that's where the question about bias comes in. That's where the question about looking at the algorithm and its transparency comes in. Parallelly with that, the various entities that are going to be applying such kind of available AI solutions and content, they also have to be regulated. So I think the global community is concerned about it. India has really taken a very, very clear role in this direction. So the minister was very much right that the governance structure, the governance aspects have to be looked right at the beginning. And if you looked at when India organized last year the big meet where it it took up the leadership of the global partnership on AI GPI.
Right.
It specifically mentioned about how do you go about regulating it. Parallelly, the bilateral conversations with the American administration, the US as well as the European Union, the AI regulation is coming in the fore. Even when the Prime Minister was in US just a month back, he engaged with all the top American CEOs from that sector who are doing pretty good work on AI. And so I think there is a very clear understanding that we have to take leadership in this, and we have demonstrated that.
Okay, I ask both of you to stay with us because we're moving on to our next story. And the German economy is facing several challenges, It started with Russia's military operation in Ukraine and the consequent sanctions on Russian energy supplies. Now, the world's third largest economy has struggled to keep its economy out of recession. Added to the tough times are the demands on its manufacturing sector to go green. Let's look at the situation that it faces and the consequences for Europe as a whole. Here's a report. It looks like 2024 might be a challenging year for the German economy. Its government recently predicted the largest European economy will contract by 0.2% in 2024. It had contracted by 0.3% in 2023, making it the only major advanced economy to fall into recession. Weak domestic and foreign demand, high interest rates and costly energy are the key reasons for denting Germany's manufacturing sector. Germany's slowing economy can have significant ripple effects on the finances of the European Union. Reduced demand for goods and services from other EU countries could create a vicious cycle, leading to lower tax revenues and Germany's ability to contribute to the EU budget, thus potentially restricting EU policy ambitions. The EU may need to adjust its fiscal policies and divert its scarce resources to support struggling member states. There could be increased market volatility affecting investments. All this could affect the political stability in the region. At the 10th Berlin Process Summit in mid-October this year, leaders from the Western Balkans and some EU member states discussed enhancement of the CEFTA to better integrate the Western Balkan region into EU-compatible policies.
Unblocking cefta also allows several other agreements to now be activated. For instance, on cross-border work, permits and region-wide e-commerce rules.
The German economy is highly interwoven with other economies in the European Union. The European project is still much sought after, and smaller countries are still hoping to accede to the Union. By meeting the requirements of the EU's common values of human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, human rights, and a functioning market economy.
Our aim, anyhow, is to make Albania become a member state-like country in the terms of doing all the homework.
But here's the thing. Germany's economic slowdown is likely to impact the economies of both Italy and France. Many Italian and French companies are part of Germany's supply chain network. Germany is a significant source of foreign direct investment for both Italy and France. The Paris Auto Show in October expectedly focused heavily on electric vehicles, even as demand is slowing. But importantly, as the EU is gearing up to impose tariff on Chinese-made EVs, despite the strength of European brands.
This year, commercially, it's actually pretty rock and roll for us because we launch almost one car every month, and this week I think it's a firework with the Renault 4, the Dacia Bigster, the Duo at Mobilize, and the 390 of Alpine.
The EU as a whole hopes to achieve climate neutrality by 2050. These targets are coming with high initial costs. Industries reliant on fossil fuels are facing increasing challenges, even as investments in clean energy are driving innovation. The energy transition presents both challenges and opportunities. It is balancing these factors that is key to balancing the growth potential of the German and consequently the European economy as a whole. The Economic Brief, DD India. Well, our guests continue to be with us. Mr. Basu, is a 0.2% recession a cause for concern, or is it just par for the course when Europe is actually accelerating a green transition?
It's certainly not par for the course. Germany is the largest economy within the EU. It is essentially the engine of the EU. If Germany is in recession, then that drags the whole of Europe down with it. And there was a long period after German reunification between 1991 and about 1999, during which Germany was called the sick man of Europe. And unfortunately, that is returning, albeit in a more modest form. But for 2 years, for an economy to be contracting for 2 consecutive years is pretty severe. and it is contracting in terms of real GDP. That means per capita incomes are coming down even more, and this is a significant problem. Also, at the moment, there is very little fiscal room for maneuver across Europe. A number of countries in Europe, the likes of Italy, Spain, etc., have public debt that is more than 100% of GDP. And consequently, there's very little fiscal room for maneuver. Germany, of course, does have more room for maneuver, but even Germany has run deficits that are outside the Maastricht criteria for some time.
Right.
So, with very little fiscal room for maneuver, the only thing that can happen is for the European Central Bank to keep cutting interest rates. It's already done so twice this year. They'll probably need to do more as we go forward in order to make the cost of funding cheaper. And the basic problem in Germany really is that Germany used to get more than half of all its energy from Russia.
Right, exactly.
And so Germany moved in lockstep with the United States in imposing sanctions on Russia. And even though that was against Germany's own national self-interest.
Sure, Mr. Basu, I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you on the larger question about Europe, but let me bring in Mr. Bhattacharjee here. Does the German auto industry, in your opinion, need protection?
I think, the way the third largest economy in the world has been struggling, for the last 2 years, although, they are trying to say that in 2025 they are going to grow 0.5%, but being a...
But they are high-tech economy.
Absolutely. Being a, manufacturing behemoth, and where manufacturing is failing because of various cascading issues around, I think the auto industry of Germany needs a boost, and the boost will have to factor in, what challenge is coming primarily from China. Okay. The predatory pricing, the way the neighboring European economy, how they are adapting EVs, and how the Chinese vehicles could be flooding the market. So I think there is a boost that definitely it requires, because as you showed in the clip, the German economy has considerable impact even on the next two large economies of Europe, France and Italy, and thus I think a protection measure is a good step.
Okay, let's turn back to Mr. Basu. Mr. Basu, how strong is the EU economy as a whole? Because that grouping as a whole is a bigger economy than China, and can it grow? Because there are smaller countries will be wanting to become part of it. Can it grow by adding new members?
That is obviously one way to grow. You grow outwards when you can't grow organically. That's called inorganic growth. You add more countries and make the economy larger. Yes, many countries are still clamoring to join the European Union, but most of those clamoring to do so are much poorer. So bringing them in requires them to undertake certain institutional reforms that will prepare them for the challenges of EU membership. So yes, they can grow that way, but there are significant challenges within already, and addressing those is more important. So for instance, Hungary is about to take over the presidency of the European Union, and Hungary is at loggerheads with a lot of the other countries. So there's effectively Hungary and Italy on the one hand, representing the sort of right-wing sentiment within Europe. You've got Chancellor Scholz of Germany representing to some degree the left-wing sentiment. He heads a leftist coalition, including the Green Party, and of course the FDP, which is the Liberals of Germany. And you've got Macron, who's a centrist. So in every country, the right-wing forces are gaining ground. You reported that in Spain, people are concerned about rising housing prices because of immigration. Immigrants are pushing up housing costs by buying up homes before the locals can do so. So there are these growing problems across Europe.
Okay.
With the ideological challenges between the right and the left, and particularly the issue of immigration being quite central. just as it is very central to the election now taking place in the United States.
Okay, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Mr. Prasanjit Basu and Mr. Subimal Bhattacharjee. Thank you for joining us and enlightening us on these subjects. And talking about that housing crisis in Spain, it's characterized by high demand and low supply, exacerbated, of course, by regulatory hurdles apart from immigration. And rents are rising, and so are property prices. So social housing also constitutes only a small fraction of the total housing stock in Spain. There's a shortage of land, there's labor shortages, and there are regulatory uncertainties. These have further limited the housing supply. The situation has led to widespread concern and calls also for an increase in affordable housing. Anu Kaushik gives us the pulse.
Carrying placards saying landlords are enemies of the working class, thousands of protesters demanding affordable housing hit the streets in the Spanish capital of Madrid. Demonstrations were also held in the tourism hub of Barcelona. The city, which hosted 27 million tourists last year, has a population of nearly 1.7 million. Demonstrators say that locals have not been able to afford rents as homeowners prefer to lease their properties to holiday goers at high rates.
We Spaniards cannot live in our cities. We are being driven out of the cities, not just out of the center. Cities don't belong to us. So we have to regulate it. The government has to regulate prices, to regulate housing.
Similar protests were held in July. Succumbing to the demonstrators' demand, the government announced a crackdown on short-term holiday rentals. Notwithstanding the measures, the number of tourists continued to rise. According to a CNBC report, Spain witnessed a 7% year-on-year increase in tourist arrivals in August 2024. Contributing nearly 13% to the GDP, tourism is crucial for the Spanish economy.
Tourism is providing economic value and employment, but we have to look for different tourism management strategies. But at the same time, try to grow and develop other economic activities that can allow in some ways to create employment in other areas.
But the ongoing housing crisis has highlighted the risk of over-tourism. The Spanish government now faces an uphill task of promoting tourism while keeping citizens' concerns over high rents in mind. The Economic Brief, DD India.
Well, that brings us to the end of the Economic Brief this week, and we leave you with this story on the legacy of the late Ratan Tata. Indian industry owes the former chairman of the Tata Group a great deal. His legacy will continue to inspire future generations through his significant contributions to nation building, including philanthropy, education, and the making of, making a car ownership a reality for countless Indian households. Diptanshu Kashyap reports.
From salt to cars, it's said that in India you'd find a Tata product in every home. Established over 150 years ago, the company became synonymous with the man once who led it, Ratan Tata. The Tata Group stands out as a remarkable conglomerate, having not only bolstered India's economy, but also dedicated itself to enhancing the lives of its people. Ratan Tata exemplified this commitment throughout his lifetime. Born in present-day Mumbai in 1937, Ratan Tata took the reins of the Tata Group from his uncle J.R.D. Tata. He played a pivotal role in transforming the conglomerate into a global powerhouse, with ventures spanning diverse industries such as steel, automobiles, software and telecommunications. One of India's most beloved and respected industrialists, he was renowned for his humility, compassion and visionary leadership. His contributions extended far beyond the business realm. Indians remember him for his unwavering dedication to corporate social responsibility and philanthropy. In addition to acquiring luxury automobile brands Jaguar and Land Rover, Tata launched the nano car to make mobility affordable for India's expanding middle class. Under his leadership, the Tata Group witnessed some significant events and acquisitions. Tata Tea bought a 33% stake in the British tea brand Tetley Group in 2000. The group's software outsourcing arm Tata Consultancy Services went public in 2004, and it entered a 50-50 venture with American coffeehouse chain Starbucks in 2012. He also supported initiatives in education, healthcare, and rural development. Under his guidance, the Tata Trusts made significant impacts, including a Rs 1,500 crore donation to combat the COVID-19 pandemic, the establishment of the Tata Medical Center in Kolkata, providing world-class cancer treatment to underserved communities, and the creation of the Taj Public Service Welfare Trust to support families affected by the 2008 Mumbai terrorist attacks. Ratan Tata has left behind a legacy that resonates deeply with many Indians. Diptanshu Kashyap's report for the Economic Brief, DD India.